Hey everybody! After my last video posted here, I decided that it'd be a fun idea to make a tutorial for you guys. So, what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how you could potentially put a hole, or really any 3D object in your yard, but we're going to be focusing on putting a hole in your yard. So, here's how I did it. First, I like to start by deleting all of the default things here. Perfect. Then I go up here to add, and I add a plane. Let's scale this bad boy up. I'm not too concerned about the size right now. We'll just go with this. Perfect. Now, what do we do with this plane? Well, we're going to want to subdivide this plane. So I go into edit mode, and then I right click. And then we have subdivide. Down here in the left corner, we have the subdivisions panel. In this case, I think I'm going to add 60 subdivisions. That looks pretty good. So, now that we've subdivided our plane, what do we do next? So, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the sculpting tab here. And this was actually an accident that I discovered this, but I was looking through the different sculpting brushes that come with Blender, and I seen the grab cloth. And, you wouldn't think a cloth look would work very well for a hole in the yard, but it actually turned out looking pretty damn sweet. So what I did was first I changed the radius down a bit, and then I began pulling downwards on the plane, creating what looks like almost a hole. So we keep working our hole a little bigger, and I kept doing this until I was happy with how it looked. Now, this is kind of all trial and error, and your hole could look different, but it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Okay, so I think this is a pretty good hole. Now you might think, well, that's not a hole at all. There's actually there's a bottom to it right there. Yeah, so what I did in this case to make this hole look way deeper was I decided, well, let's just go into edit mode and delete some faces from the bottom here. So I kind of just eyeballed it, deleted faces at random until I was happy with the hole. Now it looks a little square, so I'm going to try and round it off a bit more. I might not have subdivided it as much as I should have this time, but that's okay. So you would think, okay, yeah, that's kind of a hole. But I want the hole to have a pit that goes all the way down and is covered in grass. So what I did was I went to add, and I added a torus. Now, wow, that's kind of a weird thing to add. Well, it's actually going to come in handy here. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to take it below where the hole is, and we're going to generally try and lay it out to match the size of the hole. Let's see, scale it up a bit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to scale it. And I like to scale it upwards. So now we have this cylindrical tunnel going on. And you can bring that down. And again, I'm going to tweak the location of it a bit here. Make sure it's lined up properly. And then I will bring it down a bit because it does appear to be clipping. Awesome. So now we have this plane and we have the hole. So what do we do next? Because right now it's looking pretty boring. Well, let's get started on texturing. So let's add a bit of a dirt texture to this plane here. It doesn't need to be the best texture in the world, but it's going to be covered in grass, so you won't see it. Let's go to the shading tab here. So now that we're at the shading tab here, I'm going to hit new to add a new texture node. And I'm going to click the Principled BSDF, and I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and T. This will open up my documents, and then I have to find where I put my textures. All right, so I found my mud texture, and we are going to apply that right now. And you can see it's scaled up pretty incorrectly to the way we would want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the node panel over here, and I'm going to go to the mapping area, and I'm going to tweak the scale. So in this scale panel here, the higher the number, the smaller the scale. So let's put it at 3. That's not too bad, but I think I might just go a little smaller. There, that's pretty good. Now, I'm also going to apply this texture to our cylindrical hole here. Again, Control-Shift-T, and we have my mud forest floor texture. It's all stretched out and not looking very correct, which in this case, again, it'll be covered in grass, but I am going to try and fix this one a bit. First, I'm going to change the scale. And then I'm going to change the rotation scaling. All right, so I played with the scale settings a bit, and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's going to be obscured by grass. So one thing I did forget to mention here is that we always want to make sure the scale of our objects is applied, and this will become important here in a second. But what you do is go to Apply, All Transformations, and now the scale is applied. I will also do that to this tube object. Apply, All Transformations. Perfect. Now we have our assets here decently textured. And now we just need to add grass to these bad boys. So how did I do that? Well, I used a plugin called Geoscatter, and it is a paid plugin, but there's a free version called, I believe, Biome Reader or something like that, and it works just as good. It just has less customizations. But I'm going to go to the Biome Scatter plugin here, and I'm going to select the object plane right here. Awesome. And now we'll go to the Biome Scatter panel here and open biomes. All right. In this case, I think we're just going to go with, let's go with grass 2. All right. Would you look at that? So now we've got millions of blades of grass here, which can barely even be rendered in at the moment. But that's okay, because it'll look great when it's rendered out. I'm also going to select the tube down here, and we are going to add grass to that too. So we're going to go to the biomes, add grass 2, and this is really going to make my computer want to explode, but that's okay. It's part of the process. Okay. So by this point, your computer will probably be chugging. And I mean, I have a 3090 and it still cannot handle this amount of grass. So what I like to do is I go to the systems list here, and quite frankly, I just disable the visibility of the grass. So now the grass is invisible in the viewfinder, but that is all right. So let's get a camera put in here real quick. Perfect. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera and get it into position. Right now what we're doing is we are just trying to get a general view of how our grass plane is going to look once rendered out, because it's kind of hard to get that view without rendering it. All right, and now that we got our camera in place here, we'll just go ahead over here on the right side to the world properties and go to the color tab here, click that, and I like to add a sky texture. And what that is, it's basically a sun. And we're going to do a quick render to see what the image is currently looking like and if the grass needs to be tweaked at all. All right, so this is what our grass plane with the hole currently looks like. And I mean, I'd say that's pretty close to being done. And now comes what is normally not the fun part, which is how would you take this grass plane that I've just made and track it onto some camera footage? Well, CG Matter recently made a awesome plugin. It is now $30, but it is totally worth your money. What it does is it uses an algorithm to calculate the photogrammetry of your camera footage in order to make camera tracking points and a dense cloud mesh. It is really some awesome stuff here. And if you've ever dealt with camera tracking, you know that can take, I mean, it can take hours to get a good camera track, but this basically automates the process, and you get insane tracks. All right, so I've opened up the original project because I'm not going to go through the entire motion tracking process, but I am going to show you how it works and what the results of it are. So I'm going to go into the camera view here. And as you can see over here on the right side, I've got an active clip loaded up in my scene. So what I did was I used the camera tracker 2. Here's what it looks like. And you basically load up the video here, you hit camera track, and what it does is it tracks your whole scene and it gives you a mesh point cloud. I don't know how this algorithm works, but it literally makes a point cloud that is highly accurate to your scene and makes putting objects in extremely easy. So literally all I had to do was use the mesh point cloud as a guide, and I put the grass plane on the point cloud, right? And it just works. It works so great. It's almost witchcraft. Now, obviously, I didn't actually fall into a hole. That part of the video is actually animated by hand. So if you go to the camera here, you can see all of these crazy keyframes are what the camera tracker did. Down here, these couple of keyframes are the ones I made when I fell into the hole. So starting at frame 580, let me turn off the point cloud here so you can easily see what's going on. Starting at frame 580, I animated the camera to kind of go a little wonky to look like I was hit. And then I just animated it falling down in a straight line. Now, that's pretty much a majority of the process. I also forgot to mention that I did add a plane at the bottom of the hole, which is emitting a white light in its texture properties. That was just to give it kind of a weird supernatural portal to another dimension look. But after I rendered this all out, here's what I was left with. This is what the render of the grass looks like without any compositing. So, it looks pretty good. But how did I go about compositing it onto the footage? So, first what I did was I loaded in the footage. And as you can see the line where the render ends and where the real footage begins. So what I did over here on the left side, I animated a mask, which is currently invisible at the moment, but I animated a mask to feather out the edges so you couldn't tell as much that the grass wasn't originally there. So let's enable that mask, and as you can see, it kind of just smooths out and creates a gradient, which makes it really hard to tell that the grass is even CG at all. Along with the mask, I also added a Lumetri color to the grass itself, because with CG elements, you always do need to do some color tweaking usually. So over here on the left side, we've got the Lumetri color panel. And if I disable any of the effects I've done to it, you can see that the original color of the grass right here was not at all matching what it looked like in the footage. So I simply cranked the exposure and the white values up until it looked pretty accurate to the footage. And in the end, after some sound design, this is what the final video looked like.
Guys, can someone explain to me why I just woke up and there's a fucking hole in my yard? Like, what the fuck? Dude, how far does that thing go?